There is a darkness spreading all over the world, engulfing humanity and nature. This darkness, we do not know when or how it began or what it is, but we do know that it steals and hides the elemental wisdom from us all. Maybe you felt it when you're at school or university, or maybe in a grocery store or mall, or maybe at a church or in a laboratory, or maybe you are triggered by the news and the government. The darkness revels in our confusion and fear. Choose your destiny to become a cosmic alchemist of the elements and bring light to the darkness so that we may restore the elemental spirits within us and all around us. Before we begin our cosmic quest, we must learn about ourselves and our connection to the elemental spirits. We'll do this with the help of our spirit animals and the elemental senseis and the guilds who guide us towards our own elemental self-mastery. We are the sons and daughters of the elements, and we must bravely face the four shadow riders that have brought darkness into our world. You guys pumped up? You ready? You ready? Channeling your powers? All right. Here we go, Charlie. What's going on here? Oh my god, Mick's making a run for it. He's getting out of the labyrinth. God, you can do it. Use your earth powers. Get out! Get out of there! Elle, you can do it! Use your water powers! Charlie, use the fire! Sprinkling rain. Sprinkle rain. All right. Wow, guys. Welcome to the labyrinth. We're literally in a labyrinth. Literally.
I love it.
Welcome, everybody.
So good.
Here we are. What's going on here, Charlie? Today we're doing the Shadow Riders.
Yes, really excited to be talking about the Shadow Riders today. So just catch everybody up. We've been talking about using the four elemental powers, and so using our guilds, using astrology to kind of break down the four elements. So it's kind of like Harry Potter, right? But instead of Harry Potter, instead of Gryffindor, we're using like the fire elemental force. For the Hufflepuff, you're probably the water element and the aspects of the water force. So we're really kind of using these four powers, and we've been developing them and talking about how these powers manifest in our real world, right? So we are magical alchemists. However, we now have to understand that with great powers come great responsibilities. That means that with our light, there has been shadows created in this world. And as we've experienced now, kind of like the idea of the Shadow Riders, they're in a lot of history, people like to call them the Horsemen, but we've kind of renamed them to the Shadow Riders. And they're basically taking away each of the four elements, right? So each of the four horse riders represents when there's no earth, right? That's when we experience famine, right? So the Shadow Rider of famine. So the Shadow Rider of famine. And so we're going to talk more about how does this actually show up in our real world, right? And so us as elemental beings, where we have our powers, we want to be able to say, how can we use our abilities to work in our environment, right? If this is like our Minecraft game, let's go out in the real world and work together. We need to face these shadows, but you know how shadows are, right? You can't find shadows unless you shine the light to find the shadow. So right now we're going to talk about how we experience these shadows in our everyday life. And then using our elemental forces, let's talk about how we can address their powers and bring back light into those elemental powers so that we can bring the elemental force back into our environment, right? Because I feel like we've been at a disharmonic imbalance. And so the labyrinth is like crazy labyrinth with so many turns, right? Where that's a maze, but a labyrinth was supposed to be one way in, one way out. You know the way in, you know the way out. But now it's a maze, and I think the Shadow Riders have really hidden a lot of these paths. So we're really excited to invite all of us to share where we've seen these Shadow Riders and be able to everybody co-create. You know, everybody will send out this link to Canva where we'll be able to add our own little own experiences, what we've seen in each of these 4 Shadow Riders.
Yes, and this is also a wonderful way for us to practice transmuting our experience of these shadow writers in the world. Maybe it's in our professional lives, maybe it's in our relationships, maybe it's what we see in the news or what we see even when we're out on walks or out and about. Where do we see these different shadow writers in different capacities? And then how can we transmute that? How can we show up in service, or how can we show up in community and tribe? How can we show up with our water benders or our earth benders, or maybe a combination of earth and water and fire benders to bring light to those shadows? And we can give you guys examples. We're going to go through that as we go through this process, because we're going to give you examples of how we've already done that, how we've already showed up in community, in outdoor places, and actually reconciled those shadows in real time. But also, we're going to kind of lean in right now with some of this stuff. So some of you guys, we've shared the Canva in the text, the meeting chat, so you guys can tune into that. This is a collaborative process. So I don't know if you guys haven't used Canva yet, it's a great opportunity to learn how to use Canva. It's very easy. It's very plug and play. And if you go on the left, there's a button that clicks on elements. And there's an element list and there's a text button. So you could click on the text if you want to put in text, and you could click on elements to click on elements. And when you click on elements, you could even search up elements. So if you want to show what you're talking about, what you want to talk about, you can actually show it through a picture. You don't have to just show it through words, right? And sometimes a picture will speaks what does that thing make? Picture
speak 1,000 words.
1,000 words, right? But I can't even hear you. So sometimes you don't even hear the words, and you can just exactly.
Your words have been captured. The Shadow Riders got it.
Oh no. So
They've
that's
attacked.
so a good question to ask, and this is for anybody can answer. Let's just throw it out there. Where are you feeling the shadow right now in the community or the world? Like let's throw it out there. Where are you feeling the shadow in the world right now?
Social media.
Ooh. So everybody, where would social media be in the shadow right of war, famine, death?
Conquest. I think it's this idea of like, you know, fake conquest, fake victory, fake everything, right? Just disinformation.
Right.
Yes.
I think distraction as well. Distraction from
Ooh.
self.
So we can we can do like a post like this. We like boom, and we put it there. So now we're giving a visual representation.
Cool.
Of that, right? Yeah, and so I got a curiosity. As we share these shadow writers, we also can also play and co-create light-filled solutions to these, right? Solutions to these shadow writers. So what would be a solution to the shadow writer of social media? Like how could we bring light to that?
I think it's
Go ahead.
No, I just said that's a great question. I think about this a lot. So I don't curious to hear.
I know personally it has helped me to speak about how it diminishes my attachment to my elemental force in the moment. Because I think thematically, and especially right now, there's a lot of air influence and when there's a stronger air influence, I've noticed there is much more like an absence of truth altogether. And it almost like you can't even find the truth through the people who you think are telling the truth. It becomes so confusing.
Yeah. Conquest has this shadow has a element of like creating confusion too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's illusions. It's a lot of illusions. And that's why the air quality it's you know so good at being very like it can go everywhere, right? But because of that, it becomes also very easy to create illusions because there's nothing there. It's just all talk, right? All just words,
Mhm.
no substance behind it.
I mean, I think one way that oftentimes the shadow writers of an element can be flipped is using the opposite element, right?
Mm.
So like grounding the whatever's happening with social media, like having in-person meetings, like working with the soil, that those things can like that flip the confusion. You're like, oh, this is what's real. Like we come from the earth. We're like working with the soil, and we all eat, you know. So like, let's have a conversation around a dinner table, you know. So then you can start to dissolve some of those kind of illusions born out of air that are ungrounded, you know.
Nice, yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's a great point, and that might be a really important factor with what we're doing too. Is when we reconcile with these shadow writers in the world, that we also bring in the opposite elements intentionally, and also resource the people who are good at that. So if you know, like for example, I'm very airy. I'm a moon Gemini. So it's good for me to also spend time and be around farmers and be around gardeners and be around people who literally cultivate the earth. I notice that I am able to ground down because of my influence with them or their influence on me.
And it's also important to use also that same abilities of what the shadow rider is using, the powers of the Air Force, right? So we can also use that in a positive light, right? Is bringing that light to the shadow, where we're not afraid to go on social media and share the good things, the powerful things, the magical things, the things that drown out the distraction, so that people, we become viral because of the power of the words that we're saying, or the power of what we're trying to share, right?
I also think it's important when you're using social media to use the tools within social media to curate a space that is more aligned with what you want to focus on and like what you want to bring into the world. I've really changed what comes up on my social media by using the favorites button. And
Mm.
so when I favorited certain pages, I mean, my social media feed is so much different now than it was maybe before I started favoriting people. And I think that's really important because you're having a little bit more say or control or audit of what you're consuming.
Right.
I know that that's really been helpful for me and like my frequency and what I want to consume.
Right. That's a very powerful thing too. And another thing to kind of bring up with the shadow, just staying on this thing of social media, on this shadow writer of social media, is how it also has this effect. I've been reading some articles about this. I've been diving down the rabbit hole of the mental health crisis across the world, let alone the country, and how it's creating a lot of dissociative personality disorders, like across the board, especially with children and teenagers, but also with our generation. Just people have different personalities online, different personality on LinkedIn, different personality in real life, and they're literally disassociating from who they really are. It's hard to tell who you really are anymore. Wonder if I could find a picture of that personality. Psychology, maybe. So
And yeah, I think to ride that topic for the idea of mental health, I think that's the idea of also where we go into people who are suicides, right? Like because of the mental health is so bad, and I think that's the shadow rider of death, right? We've gone to this experience now where our mental health is causing us to like not want to play the game, not want to be in this experience anymore, and so because the shadow rider is connected to water, and we've talked about how water is at, I mean, we are 80% water. That's a nurturing aspect. But now we already know so many things about, we talked about how the thoughts that we send to water, that water creates those crystals and it has that energy of the vibration you give it. And so with this mental health issues, it's caused our own water to become negatively vibratory, and that's causing a lot of this death, right? And so I feel like when we're not nurturing ourselves, this is where the shadow riders get to really like cause us to want to really not live. You know, it's kind of where I feel that energy is happening.
Yeah, Charlie, you bring up what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Charlie, in that same vein, I also think that because our water within and our ability to connect with our emotional state and our subtle body energy, we forget that we are made to heal ourselves, right? And because we're disconnected with the elements, we're disconnected with the tools that have literally been provided and planted here on the earth to help us heal. And, you know, with the work that you're doing with TCM, it's like you're reconnecting to that so deeply because you're using tools, resources, herbs that help people heal. And people really need to know about that. So that's another, right? Being able to communicate, which is the air, then utilizing the herbs, the flowers, the plant medicines, the earth, so that we can clear, you know, the water, the emotional body within us, so that we can take action, you know, like it's super elemental. So I was thinking about that. Like, if we can remember that we are able to heal ourselves using the tools that are here on earth, like that would be a huge shadow rider, like middle finger, like big time.
Shadow Rider, middle finger.
Yeah.
That should be one of your cards, your super, you know, when you know the superpower, special superpower that you get to use.
Is it the pointed finger of light? Like you use the pointed finger and sends light at the shadow. Gotcha.
Yeah,
But yeah,
as you guys
go
are
ahead.
sharing the water thing too, I was thinking about the physics of how our water systems work as well, and how the right angles of all our pipes that a lot of our pipes we use actually disrupts and distorts and disharmonizes water. Whereas in any natural aquifer or natural movement of water is usually on curves and creates curves, and the curves helps the water build up inertia and memory of that allows it to be more living water. The right angles in our pipes actually creates water that's not active and actually is not even helpful to us. Like it doesn't give us the hydration that actually life needs and deserves. So that's like physics. Like that's not even something is like woo woo or anything. That's like one of those things where we can like go to like planning department meetings of like water and like environmental like for cities and counties and be like, hey, there's facts behind. Can we like redo our pipes or can we rethink our pipe system and our water systems? You know?
Yes. And all the chemicals and everything that's in our water is quite disturbing. So
The purification system is terrible. I mean, as
it's
engineers, we have not improved
no
on
bueno.
nature's version of this filtration system.
No.
So that's definitely something that like airbenders or even earthbenders and airbenders and maybe collective waterbenders and firebenders can come together and be like, let's come together and go to these planning department meetings. Let's collectively create action around purifying water and enabling water purification. That would be a fantastic way to reconcile that, Shadow Rider.
And I think on a personal level too, I think those who have those natural elements in their charts to be able to become more in tune with those elements, right? In ways that like, you know, is beyond what we've been taught in any industry, systems, social media, or whatever we've been raised with, right? I think there's another way where we can deeply connect with these elements. And because the shadow riders have told us that this is how we connect with the elements. And so today, like the idea of farming, right? Like how do we involve all four elements where today we've you know, it's silly that I keep hearing history. We've only gotten dumber as a race. And like, what? That makes no sense. You know, and I think this is where, you know, it's because we've forgotten just fundamentals.
Yeah, we use pesticides on our food, like
Ooh, yeah.
cancer-causing pesticides on our food. Like, come on, guys.
so that your apple can look perfectly red and plumpy.
Right. And Charlie, you brought up farming, and that's, you know, that's a big part of what we care about is regenerative practices. But that's really important that we face the shadow and we face it with courage and curiosity and celebration, and not be burned out from facing it, but to be like, wait, okay, we're dealing with, okay, yes, there's shadows showing up. I mean, and I'll call it out and point it out. There's billionaires that own initiatives and run initiatives that actually destroy the soil and control the food system. And so how do we face them and not be like, not be scared to face that, but actually face it with love and courage and curiosity, and maybe starting small rather than trying to go face somebody like a big, when you played video games, you don't just go to the big boss right away. Like, who did you ever just go to the big boss?
You could try. You could try. Just so you get humility. There's some games that'll show you, here's the boss that you have to eventually beat.
Right? But what did you have to do to get to the big boss?
Kill the little guys first.
Yeah. You have to build your skill and your resources, and sometimes you get new magical skills along the way as you practice. So we need to do that same thing when we're dealing with these like massive shadow riders. There's big shadow riders, there's big bat bosses, but there's also like we can start small too with that process. So I'm curious, when it comes to farming, like what are your guys' ideas? And Mick, we literally have examples now where we're not just we've done, but it's even coming up where we're reconciling this shadow rider in terms of Earth. Any examples, Mick?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we've done a number of events here in Los Angeles, and of course you're doing it out there in Hawaii, right? And all sorts of events where we're actually going out and planting native plants and helping communities that have already started native gardens, like in Elysian Park up here. And there are a few places called the test plots. It's pretty close to Echo Park area, and they're native gardens. And we went up there and helped tend the plants and weeded and watered and created a labyrinth and talked about all of these elements in relationship with families that came and joined us on this regenerative weekend event. Yeah, and we did another one out in Culver City, right, where we were planting some radishes to help break up the compacted soil, and California poppies, and some ceanothus plants, which help bring nitrogen into the soil and create those nutrients that the soil needs to thrive and be alive. And we're all doing it in our own ways as well, and in our own communities. We just had an open house at school where I work for a garden that we've created over the course of a year. Sheet mulching, which is cardboard and mulch over the grass, because this school just has grass everywhere. It takes a lot of water in Southern California. We're like, well, we can put in native plants and we can even put in edible plants, but if we mulch it correctly and give it the right nutrients, you don't actually have to water it as much as you have to water grass. So we just had the big open house, and people were making teas out of all the different herbs that we're growing there, including Mexican marigold, which is really good for relaxation, especially at the end of the year. Students were drinking this tea and de-stressing from tests that they had taken during the day. So there are a lot of things we can do in our communities. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love that too. And in a way too, that's something to bring up is how you guys turning the soil into enriching the soil, and then having these plants grow that actually you mixed in water to give you a tea. So you could see this, the earth and the water elements coming together to produce, some sort of healing elixir. So that's cool that we're seeing that transmutation happening in real time and cultivating health and well-being in the community thus.
And fire too, because it's hot water.
Oh, right? I mean, I guess all the elements are in everything.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Can you separate any of the elements ever out of all the things?
No, really, you can't. You just have like ones that kind of step up a little bit more, like, okay, I'm a little bit more water than the other ones right now, but like, yeah, they're all related, of course.
and also to create some illumination for those, since you guys are stepping into this cosmic labyrinth space, and you guys are newbies. We also, as we are building this meta game, this way to kind of play with the world and show up and face these shadows in a meaningful way, we're also starting to reimagine how can we build an element-based marketplace where people can actually earn currency based on the elements, and they can earn self-develop themselves around the elements, and then be able to reciprocate that with others who might need support in elements they don't thrive in, right? So we're just trying to reimagine economics around the elements as well. So you guys, as you guys are leading into this, we would love to your ideas and theories on how that can happen too, because maybe you have some wisdom perspective that we don't have. So any other shadow writers that are showing up that are bothering you or triggering you, or that it could be people too. Like, it's okay. It's kind of healthy for us sometimes to turn our frustrations and triggers about people into, gamifying it.
So I wanted to go back to famine too. The idea too of like produce and food, and how like we have to have, like, food is made from somewhere else and it goes into a place and you get food. We cannot grow food, right? Or just there's some crazy laws where like you can't grow your own food. It's ridiculous, and so then we live in these crazy tight cities of like cement, right? And so, like, we can be like famine of food, but like famine of just green grass and green
Right.
everything, that isn't connected to food.
Right. Is that cow sad? You think, does that cow look sad?
Yes.
Good. I wanted to make a sad cow.
Buddy.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, famine is a tough one too. There's so many shadows there. Gosh.
Mhm. I when you were speaking about that, I kept thinking of not just famine, but like really the poverty in people's minds, in a way, that they're, even in places where there is such abundance,
Mm.
it's almost, and I'm just speaking of a recent experience. I was around someone who was so wealthy, and just the sensation that was created in the people around this person was that sort of everyone else wasn't enough. And it was kind of this projection
Mm.
of, obviously their own perception. And in that way, I wonder how just moving, your body in between that person and then the people who may not be able to withstand that projection may help. And
Mhm.
also how that may help with famine, just moving your body kind of between, breaking up that, like, sort of the protocol of famine.
Oh, interesting. Curiously, this individual that you're talking about, that does he or she, or they, are do any work with the soil, or any, like, actually get their hands dirty?
No.
Hmm.
And that's a good point. That's a very good point. Moving the body to a place where that element could disrupt the perception.
Yeah, or some fungi or mushroom or some microbiome can enter their body and start manipulating them from within.
Right, I know. The
I guess
medicine.
it's out of the famine too, right? Famine of microbiotics inside your body.
That's true.
Yes, good point. Good point.
I mean, that affects your serotonin levels, right? Your gut micro.
Mhm.
So,
I
right?
mean,
So
because
you
our
don't,
food is like so factory made now. We're not even close to. If we're not getting from our food, we're not even close to like touching the ground these days.
I would throw something else in there too. You know what you could also do is you could, if you could take your poop, and make a pill out of it, and then put it in their drink, every day. Don't tell them,
Mhm.
Fecal transplant.
Just be like, here, look, I made you a steak. It's delicious. It's a delicious steak.
That's really funny. Like the fecal pill is like actually how compost works too, right? So because our digestive system is a composting system.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
We
makes me
talk about
wanna-
earth bending all the time.
And that's why I'm gonna put poop in here too, because we got a weird relationship with poop. Like we gotta
Yes,
break
we
that
do.
relationship. That's
Yeah.
so messed up. It's
Oh my God,
causing
don't
so.
talk about poop. Don't talk to me about poop. Why?
I've been canceled at a
It's so
community.
important.
I've been canceled at a conscious communities for bringing up poop health.
You be canceled
It's
for
so
poop?
important
Wow.
though. It's
Yeah.
like how it helps us to like think. It's like it's one of our truer brains, our gut. So we need to be having more conversations about poop. Like it's in poopative.
How's that one? Is that a good poop
Yeah.
right there?
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. I mean, it's microbial health is like where it's at, right? And there's so much research that's come out in the last decade about microbial health, and poop is a big part of it. You know, a lot of the research is done on people's poop and animals' poop, and how can you improve it? So,
Elimination is important. Yes.
mhm. Yeah, and the soil is directly related to it. And so, yeah, it's good to have animals that are pooping on your property, and if you can get like, you know, if you have a farm, if you can get a composting
How's
toilet
that?
going, then you're even better. You've got great fertilizer. So
Like that
Yeah.
poop has been censored.
Oh my gosh. There's a great podcast. I'm trying to find it for you guys. It's called The Power of Poop. I'm gonna share it with you guys. A link. It's I'm gonna share it in the chat right here. This is the Apple one, but I just recommend everybody like watch or listen or whatever you got to do to if you're on Spotify, it's on Spotify. But it really dives into the history of how we manage poop, and how we're doing it right now is like completely, we're actually basing our whole sewer systems on a system that caused all kinds of huge like outbreaks of disease out in England. So we're using systems of poop that caused huge epidemics. Like what the heck?
You know, it's like that idiom, like really not dealing with your shit.
Yeah, that's a really I like totally lean into that shadow writer, Charlie, like this poop shadow writer. And you know, I would love, I personally I would champion that, because I left medical school because of a GI issue, right? And I couldn't fix it. And it was one of the most frustrating things to be in medical school and not be able to fix something when you're in the space that you're supposed to be fixing things, supposed to be fixing things. And for me, it's been a journey of like learning Ayurveda, learning my own health and self-healing, to be like, wow, we really need to face this shadow rider of poop, you know, in a meaningful way, because it's not just the poop. It's actually, there's actually something deeper there, that like we're afraid of looking at the shit, like emotionally too, and socially too.
I just realized the cosmic labyrinth is the digestive tract. So poop could be our mascot if we wanted to be triggering.
Yes, like Mr. Hanky. I'm so down, and we can have a theme song. Mr. Hanky, the cosmic poop. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
We should make a whole album, like a meditation mantra album, like a mantra album, but with the
Yes.
poop, just about poop.
You can
know?
self-diagnose based on your poop. You're like, look down and see if the color's right. And that's how we'll beat Shadow Rider of Famine.
You know I poop. Come on, you know it. Come on. That's ignorant.
I mean,
That's ignorant.
listen how we're laughing and how much joy we're getting from talking about those taboo, shadowy topics. It's like awesome. Everybody poops, y'all. It's like
Yeah.
the thing.
Actually, some people don't, Tizzle, and they suffer, and they cause other people to
This
suffer.
is true. This
Yes.
is true. Everybody poops sometimes. How about that?
Yeah.
Everybody. No, I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we just gotta hack all these popular songs, you know? Any popular
I'm
songs.
in. I'm in for that. I'm in because what's funny too is most people wouldn't take it seriously, and we're like, no, no, we are. We're taking poop very seriously. Look, we even made songs.
Almost too seriously. We might start like going to people's houses and be like, "Can we have your poop, please?" Please, sir.
I mean, I think also it's just the conversation of even natural compost, right? Like, do you know how much of our trash is like food that can be compostable and then brought back? Because literally, we all as farmers still spend money for soil that we should just be making ourselves because we earthbend, right, through our poop, but really through a lot of our food that we eat that can be compostable. You know, I'm here in Texas, Houston, and you know, like recycling was like a new thing like a few years back. So like getting compost is a whole nother thing. But like that's so much food that's wasted that when they say landfills, I'm like, what landfills? Put it back in the dirt.
Right.
I feel like we haven't talked about the last shadow rider of war.
Oh, that one's a scary
I
one.
feel like we are kind of in the times of where the shadow rider is kind of taking center stage in our global, you know, global topics. So that's a very important one. But I think personally too, right? There's a lot of like sides. People are taking sides, whatever that is, in every single field that we know, industry. And so it's really tough that like, you know, there's a lot of like this war on anything we are, right? Like whoever you are, you get labeled and suddenly you're like at war at the opposite label. Like what is going on? There's a lot of this kind of like, yeah, frustration, anger of like, you know, what is mine, what is yours? And even then that's like fluid in many ways. So yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's a one like topic of war. I think right now maybe it's just countries, right? So different um, philosophies of civilizations.
Mhm. Mhm. Which of course that makes me think of not just duality, but the theater of war. Like how are we, you know, passively supporting that theater? And how do we move between, put ourselves between that duality in a way, you know? Um,
Yeah, I mean, refugees is definitely a symptom of war, right? A lot of us,
mhm.
you know, I'm from the Vietnam era, so I know about that.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting um, what has war has done to. Yet here we are, all of us who are refugees in one country, learning to live
Mhm.
together because we experience each other now. It took
Mhm.
war, but war, you know, did something else. So I think it's really interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, you say theater of war, what that makes me think of is these delusions. Like we have, like we're all
Mhm.
prescribing this,
Mhm.
like the delusion of America, the delusion of
Mhm.
Russia. These are delusions. Like they're not.
Mhm.
There's no line,
Right.
right? Um,
Right.
I mean, before people fought wars for religions. Now they're fighting wars
Mhm.
for nations,
Mhm.
and even worse, they're fighting wars for corporations now, right?
Mhm.
Just
Those.
big games
Mhm.
again, right?
There's also a war on history and information. You
Mhm.
know, I've
Mm.
been an educator for 23 years now, and not to pick on any state, but there's a particular state in the southern region of this country that is just making it impossible to learn, you know, to to get information, to stay on top of like what's been going on. And there's like censorship. Like we claim to have all these, you know, constitutional rights, but there's so much censorship happening. And I mean, I just learned something today through social media, right? So it's like fighting the shadow riders again, but it's like I learned about this new with the Osage community, which I had never heard of about before, and what this country had done to this community of like Native Americans. And it was like the birth of the FBI, but it's like, I'm so grateful that I learned about it because I'm 40 years old, and how I've never heard or learned about it until today. Like I was today years old when I found out. It made me think so deeply, like, wow, how many other things, and I know it's countless, have occurred or happened that we're just, like, the textbooks are curated in a way to only give you this much information, right? I remember a textbook when I was teaching that talked about how, like, the slaves chose to be slaves. What? Like, it just, so there's like a war on information and like how we receive it and how we even get access to it. And I think that's really important too, because if you're not someone who cares about really seeking things, seeking like truth, you can easily be fed lies. You can easily be fed disinformation. So I think that's another important war to consider, is the war on information.
That's really good one. Yeah, because it's like we can only prevent repeating history if we know what happened, and the places that, you know, keep remembering what happened, they also invigorate resilience and courage and celebration even more, right? People like I come from a community, the Sikh community in India, that have been, you know, oppressed and attacked, you know, by the Mughals first, and then it was the British, and now it's the Indian nation state of the Hindu nation state. So like 3 different things. However, each one of those things, because of the communities getting oppressed, it's channeling that oppression into more resilience and more by sharing the stories of the past and the present, and those stories of the past and present is also, they allow for reconciliation too, because a lot of those stories are like taking care of your enemy, like loving your enemy, actually taking care of them when they're ill or sick or hurt, and noticing that actually you could transmute that energy with love. And you don't, sometimes the best war to be won is not through any violence at all, but through compassion and love. And so these stories really empower us, I notice. And so, but it's funny because you don't hear those stories in the Western culture that much, about the Western culture. Like we don't hear enough about these stories of reconciliation, or, you know, it's not prevalent. Or allyship. Like I learned about John Brown only a couple of years ago. It's because of that show that came out on Showtime. But like John Brown, how come we don't learn about him in history schools? History, what the heck? One of the coolest allies America has ever produced. Like a legit ally.
Right. And I think that's all about the shadow rider conquest, right? Is choosing what we've, you know, conquered, or what is considered, you know, people we should consider like the ones we see as victors, right?
Have you guys seen that show? I forgot what it's called, the one with John Brown on Showtime. Oh man, I'm gonna find it and share it with you guys.
Showtime?
It's a excellent show. So Ethan, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's so interesting to hear everyone's perception, because when you even break down the word information, it's in formation. And there is something very, you know, like literal and figurative to it. It's like we are being put in formation by being like passive receivers. And I think I felt a little bad bringing up the air element right off the bat, because I have a lot of air in my chart. But I think and you had brought up war too. It's like, how do we put ourselves in between the formation?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean, I'm gonna jump in there and explore that because I listen to so many different like luminaries in this space, and it's like there is a macrocosm. There's a huge snowball that's been like rolling for a while, right? These delusions, these countries, these nations, and these corporations, Lockheed Martin, blah 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 blah. Like they're all huge shadow rider bosses, right? I don't know if we're gonna make a dent in there as quickly unless we can take them they take the CEOs on a mushroom trip or like ayahuasca and we take them into the jungle and then we really tune them in and connect them with what it means to be human and to feel ecstasy and bliss, to really feel it, to be enlightened by like a near-death experience potentially. Like that's possible, sure, always possible. Okay, but I don't think it's one person's going to heal the person. As a community, we have to rally around people like that, right? Individuals. We always have to be wary that I'm going to save that person. I'm the one who's going to show that person the light. Like, be careful about that one. But we also have the microcosms of how do we put a dent in these shadow riders of war, shadow riders of conquest, in these smaller spaces, and in like in our own mini community, in our mini communities or our communities. And I feel like one of the things that we've done in the past, we did an outdoor community sound healing in Santa Monica in a public park one time, and it was really great. We actually got a grant for it, which is awesome, from a nonprofit. We didn't even need the grant, but it was nice to get the grant, to get support. And we did this thing, and one of the feedbacks we got, and people did surveys and everything, one of the biggest things that people shared with us, and people walked into it, random people walked into it, they all shared that they felt experiences of peace and peacefulness when they hadn't had it for maybe months or years because of the pandemic. So we're right now, people just don't know what peace, they don't have access to peacefulness right now. And paying $30 to go to like a yoga studio or like some fancy like, full moon ceremony or new moon, like not everybody has that access to pay
Right.
40, 50, $60 to go.
Right.
So how can we create more spaces of peace, like actually a real space of peace? And even if people come in there, little conflict, they're ready to do conflict. No, we're peaceful warriors, so we can turn that conflict into a moment of peace for them too. Here, take the sound bowl. Here, play this, try this. We could flip it on people through play. So where are you, Jay?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, Austin, Texas right now. Just temporarily. I'm here doing a fundraiser, so.
A fundraiser or a fundraiser?
A fundraiser. But amplifying the fun. Nice. For a group called Moving Medicine Forward, which educates medical students on plant-based disease reversal.
Nice.
Amazing.
So
sweet.
Trying to break down those barriers in the, medical institution, and really also educate people on pharmacosclerosis, like a real belief that pills can heal or nourish, and instead return to the fact that, like, our cells, you had brought something up really important earlier, that we naturally know how to heal. And I wonder, with that, because our cells, I think Deepak Chopra said this or explained this at some point, that our cells are just the matter wrapped around a memory. Mm-hmm. And in that same way, it's sort of like with this disinformation or even talking about war, there has to be some memory we have to undo or to re-arbitrate or something, healing. There has to be some memory in there. It's just, how do we access it?
Right.
So I'm in Austin.
It's interesting that you share that. One of the things that I connect with a lot these days is, yes, it's true that we carry our trauma. Like they've proven it with mice and humans that like we carry our ancestral trauma within us, doesn't matter what perspective we come from, right?
Mhm.
And also, if we carry our trauma in our genetics, we also carry our resilience in our genetics.
Mhm, mhm.
And if we're here,
Yes.
if we're alive right now, like doesn't matter what background, white, black, yellow, purple, rainbow, whatever you are, right? Your ancestors experienced some crazy level of resilience somewhere
Yes.
around famine,
Mhm.
around war, around conquest, around all of these things. They definitely survived.
Mhm.
That's why we're here. So
Right.
that's
Right.
in us, that coding, that genetic
Mm.
memory is inside of us too.
Such a good point.
What does it come out like? Does it come out in song? When I hear Sarissa came in here, she's entered the labyrinth, and I think of
Mhm.
Sarissa and her voice and how she channels her voice. I think I actually can feel her ancestors when she's using her voice to heal other people, because clearly somewhere her ancestors used their voices too. I can like feel that.
Mm.
That's nice. Well, my mother says that my sister loves to sing. She's a music therapist. Yeah, but my mom is like, it's so weird. You remind me of my father. He always used to love to sing at everyone's wedding. It was like his gift. He like wanted to sing for people's wedding. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it comes from somewhere, and then I feel like I do feel him with me, I do feel the people who came before me through that. And that's why it's so cathartic.
So maybe it comes through food. Like maybe food is the resilient
Oh.
light
Mhm.
bringer, bringing people around food,
Mhm.
together around food, healthy food,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
I do it through pooping. Like my ancestors, man, they had some legendary pooping, and so I channel the poop, the great poop, the great inner poop within.
The great transformation.
Hey, listen, my ancestors were Indian farmers with water buffaloes. So you'd better believe they were eating some
Mm.
yogurt and some ghee from the water buffaloes, man. And
Healthy.
it's going to make your poop like super powered.
Mm-hmm. Humanure.
Yep. And they weren't pooping out in like some sewer system. They were pooping into the fields that they were growing their food too,
Giving it back to the land.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. The poop's got to stay in the loop, as they say.
Touche. I mean, touche.
Ah.
Yeah, so what other Sarissa, you popped in here. We'll share this link with you right here in the chat so you can get it. But we are just like throwing all the different shadow writers that we experience on the micro or macro level and kind of like talking and moving through it, these different shadow writers.
Oh, okay, awesome. I'll take a look, but I will say I'm on my phone, so I don't know if I can like access both. Like I don't know if I can.
There's only one way to find out.
Well, okay, that's true.
but yes, of course, no Hakuna Matata. Yeah. Any other stuff, guys, with war or famine? I don't know if you guys noticed, but with the Shadow Rider of Death, I added some pills and I added a doctor like holding up. He's kind of like he's hanging out in the like drudge with his like prescription bottle,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely accurate. The whole industry in and of itself.
Right.
Yeah, the medical system, the food system.
Food system.
You have corporations who all of a sudden think that they're doctors.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Corporate doctor. And now there's like telehealth, right? Dude, that's crazy. I have friends who are psychologists, and they're like, we can't help but do it, right? Because it's easier money for them, but like it's not resulting in better results. So it's like, oh my gosh, there's a mental health crisis, and then everybody's just moving towards where there's more money. Where is it easier and more money? Eep, 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 eep. Which
How
by the
about
way, go ahead, Charlie.
oh, another one would be AI, so conquest, right? When we have artificially created, intelligence that we don't then have to think. It's like, oh, thank God I created an AI, so I don't have to use my brain anymore. Like, it's we've kind of removed our abilities and give it to something else that does it even, not as great. And we just hope that we're just like writing ourselves out of existence. It's really interesting what's going on with the AI, and everyone's saying you can't compete versus AI. I'm like, I know, but I don't want to be AI. I want to be organic intelligence, not this artificial construct that it's getting really popular. New tech is an AI and virtual reality. So you put those together, it's like kind of a Black Mirror nightmare scenario that's like Matrix right here for you right now.
And AI lacks heart, intelligence. And I think that's our biggest problem, is that, we're in the information age, intellectual intelligence is so valued. And if we can all sink into heart intelligence more, I think a lot of our issues would start to resolve, and there'd be a lot more connection and community. And AI lacking heart intelligence is kind of scary to me. So
Elle, how do you imagine that heart intelligence can be activated?
well, I mean, there has to be a connection to self, and I think that's something that most people lack as well. And we're overscheduled. People are scared to spend time by themselves and develop that relationship with self. And in a capitalist society, just selling things to people because they're not enough, so I don't know how that could be resolved. I think definitely in small community is where it would start. But I don't have answers to any of these problems. That's kind of why I'm here. But
Yeah, what we collective intelligence is pretty badass.
yes, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would throw in there, as you were sharing that, I was contemplating how, like, we recently went to the Sedona Yoga Festival. We did a whole bunch of things there. Coming up there's a Bhakti Fest, which is happening in Joshua Tree, and Mick is leading a regenerative play shops throughout, and Cosmic Labyrinth / Mick. We're going to be doing a bunch of different play shops around the elements during that festival. And I must say that these festival spaces where there's like intentional gathering, where it's not just a bunch of drugs and some music, but it's actually like, oh, there's going to be yoga and meditation and kirtan and singing and respecting the shamans and different cultures and different teachings. But then what we're doing there too is planting and creating compost bins and doing some practices where the festival itself can start to plant the future for future generations, the energy of the festival. But for me, when you think about heart centered or heart activations, I feel like intentional gatherings that like are like really well put together are so potent for the heart.
I agree. I think that I'm at a retreat right now, like for that, with a bunch of women. And I think that's why we do gather, especially in a day and an age where you're seeing the two opposites kind of flourish, right? You have people wanting to connect back to their roots, to the organic intelligences, Charlie called it, right? They want to come back to that inner knowing, that innate sense of knowledge. And then you have the opposite, the artificial intelligence, right? Where the technology is really leading. And I think that, we have to learn how to use both, right? And at the same time, that's why we gather. We gather so that we remember how to keep the balance. We remember that too much of anything is no good. So, we hold each other accountable, and we can do that in many ways. We can do that through food. We can do that through music. We can do that through just simple projects, farming, many, many things that, it doesn't matter what it is. I think it's just the communal sense of knowing that you're not alone, that knowing that there's power in numbers, and that we can help each other just remember what it is to be human, and what a gift it is to be alive, and what a pleasure it is to be of service. So, yeah.
Drop the mic. Well, welcome to the party, Diana. So,
Hey guys, sorry to crash so late. I'm just leaving the airport right now, so I wanted to pop in and connect to the elements and all of you beautiful souls.
no sari unless you're wearing a sari, madam. Okay.
You could have saw that coming.
Well,
Yeah, I know. It's becoming to be a little predictable, huh? What color sari am I wearing right now?
That's not very neuroplastic, huh, of me.
No, it's not. It's actually, I'm very disappointed.
Well, it's nice to have you here, Dee.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah, and Dee specifically is a nurse who's been working in the industry as a nurse for some time, and now reconciling that because caregivers don't take care of themselves, nor do they know a lot about how powerful the earth is when it comes to these things, or the influence of these toxic elements. So she's doing a lot of work in that space. So Dee, do you see the shadow rider, or where have you seen the shadow rider, like within the hospital system or within that specific, because you've worked so deeply in that system?
The shadow rider. So as the shadow, can you break that down for me? Like, what am I looking for?
Where did you see the shadows coming out of people's bodies? Like, when you're looking at them, you just see the shadows coming out. Like, kind of like octopus arms.
So the shadow riders are kind of like the four elements where they're missing, right? And they're done in the four horsemen. So we have the shadow rider of war, which is when fire gets out of hand and you create anger and frustration.
Right.
So we have the shadow rider of famine, which is for food and earth.
Yeah, I mean, I
hospital
definitely...
food.
yeah, hospital food. Wow, that was definitely something I struggled with being there. But a lot of frustration, a lot of misplaced anger and projections in that space because of these feelings of hope, like powerlessness. People are very disempowered in the space as doctors, nurses, therapists, everyone there has gone into that role with the intention of wanting to do good and help people, right, and support. And but the reality is that when you actually start to be in spaces like that, it's actually harmful. It can actually be re-traumatizing, not only for patients, but for us. We all come with our own set of experiences and traumas as well. So I guess maybe the fire, the war kind of thing, because I feel like there's a lot of internal struggles. I recently spoke with actually Caroline. She's one of the board members for our organization, and she's in Kauai, and she was sharing that there's a huge crisis, especially in Hawaii, with doctors leaving the island because everybody is no one can afford to stay there. And again, same dynamics, right, in like the hospital settings. And so there was an ER doctor that she ran into, and he was just sharing his hopelessness, like how hopeless he feels, and how he's not doing what he wants to do, but he also feels like that if he's not there, the other shadow riders around are going to cause more harm. So kind of then you take on this like you have to be the martyr almost. And so lots of that, you know, and it's I still feel like I'm detoxing from that, all of that, you know, being in that space for like, you know, almost 8 years of my life and spending a lot of time there. And so I think it's a constant, it's going to be a constant process of like this unfolding and remembering, like Sarissa was just saying, like reconnecting and learning what it is to connect again and why we're here. Yeah, so I don't know, that's kind of just off the top of my head what comes through when I think about what nurses are going through, what doctors are going through, what healers are going through in that space in particular.
I think in the Shadow Rider of Death could be also like the idea of loneliness or like being isolated, right? Because that was really what we all went through during the time of COVID, right? We were isolated. So even just healers, you know, in the hospital setting, like you're isolated because you're working so hard, but like you never have time to rest, right? So you're always kind of, you know, being pushed and isolating that you may not have like the teamwork you need to support yourself.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to that, Charlie. I definitely can share that I experienced that right when COVID started. I mean, there was a point where Rishi and I we didn't see each other for 3 months at the beginning of COVID because everybody was just so scared of us, of the people that were, of the nurses. They're like, oh God, you guys are like, you know, we were like the lepers of the community. And so nobody wanted to like be in contact. Like everybody was just like, you know, isolated at home. And so it was definitely, it was pretty traumatic actually. At the time when you actually really need to be people, I had friends that actually were not even staying with their kids. Like they were having, like they had kids that were immunocompromised in some way and they still had to work. So they were like, you know, staying in hotels so that their kids could, you know, it's because they didn't know, like none of us knew anything, right? They were just like, people were just dying. So they said. And so it was really interesting to see like how everybody handled it and to see like in real time, like these traumatic experiences and how people were dealing with it. It was pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's kind of off tangent, D, but it's not. It another thing for me is as you're sharing that, I'm also thinking about conquest, how education plays a role, like how our modern education is, and how like there's almost like there's an intentionality to isolate and individualize and autonomize. I don't know if that's a word. Autonomize people, like children and eventually adults, to like literally make them just pieces of a machine, just to like completely make them a part of a cog in a machine. And if they don't fit in the cog, then you're insane, you're wrong, you don't fit, get out of here, you should be homeless, you deserve to be homeless, kind of situation.
And I don't think that they're far off. I think healthcare and education are completely parallel in the experiences and of like, and what's happening with teachers is very parallel to like what's happening with nurses and doctors, like the same, the same experiences of not being able to be, show up in your truth, like for why you signed up to even do this work. It's like teachers, right? You want to support the growth of children and whatever they want to do, right? And teachers are just not, it's this undervalued, like we're just not valued in society, like the way that we should be. And I think it becomes dangerous when our teachers and our healers are not valued as they should be in society. So, because we all know that we need them, but at the end of the day, like when you call people in and ask them, okay, well, like, what are you willing to do to support what's happening, and it might require a sacrifice, right? I've just been met with a lot of resistance because there's a lot of fear. Like there's so much fear around like losing your place, losing, whatever comforts you have. But right now, like these times are calling for us to be uncomfortable. So yeah, it takes courage.
Then thanks also, Tizzle, for putting in stolen land with the indigenous and just any indigenous community. We all come from indigenous communities, but there's been so much stolen land and land that's not being tended to. So it's a part of famine too. That like there's so much land that could be growing food, that could be regenerating the soil, could be preventing climate change or like fire situations and all these things. Fire hazard could be mitigated if we were actually, if especially the indigenous people had the ability to tend the land and to teach us how to tend the land too, because we can learn from it too.
What does redlining communities mean?
Who put that?
Redlining communities is when you take a community and instead of allowing the people that are there, you start to like bring in other people into the community. So like grandma might be in the community, but then all of a sudden like, hey grandma, we're gonna give you this much money for your house. So then like say in a lot of like Black communities, and you can watch documentaries about this. Where
Is
whole
that
Black
what people call regentrification?
It's like it's gentrification as well, and it's redlining. They're like somewhat one and the same, but it's like literally pushing whole communities out and putting others in because they can.
Yeah, Puerto Rico experiences that. Hawaii experiences that. Like literally, I can't tell you how many people we've met in Hawaii that are native Hawaiians that have to move out of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like they grew up, their kids, they can no longer live there, even though they're like generationally from there because.
Yeah.
And that just shows that like, a lot of times it is the local community that is the anchors of the overall bigger civilization, right? And so when people feel like we can't do something because, these corporations are so big, actually, it's because it's the small communities that aren't working together that they get picked up one at a time, that these bigger corporations can like really take over these sections. But if they had stronger communities where the people were like love being there and they have been investing in their own community, they wouldn't want to leave, right? Because they're not just a house, they actually worked in this local yard, and so they would want to fight for the space that they're in, versus when you just pay people a little bit more from what they could do, but like they end up also like taking out all the beautiful like homes, right? Like the old homes, then they like will bring in like their cookie paste, cut and paste buildings.
Yeah.
To the neighborhood.
So as we're sharing all these, all these shadow writers, and it feels very heavy, and I'm glad that everybody's kind of leaning into this, and really commend everybody for staying here, staying in the discomfort, staying in this space together, right? Collectively, us doing this. But the other side of this is, as we're putting this up, the next stages for all of us is to continue to meditate and visualize, or maybe reach out to each other for examples or ideas of ways to reconcile these and remediate these shadow writers, for us to start to bring the light aspects of these elements, or the combination of these elements, to reconcile these, right? We've shared Bhakti Fest with you guys. That's like a little physical space that you could come meet us at, and we could do it in person together. However, maybe tonight or tomorrow or the next day, you're like on a walk or something, and you're like, gosh, I'm experiencing the redlining in my community. All right, I'm gonna hit up Tizzle, I'm gonna hit up Charlie. What ideas can we like do to like reconcile these redlining happening in my community? And then maybe we'll sit down and have a heartstorming session, and from that we come up with a way to gather the community to maybe show up at the city hall and be like, we don't want this. We want to create housing for people, but to actually come together with that purpose, not to show up just by yourself, but when we show up together in any sort of activity, there's way more power in that. All you need is three.
I would love to add to that it's a good reminder, because something talking about redlining and just people being pushed out, in Puerto Rico situation, and same thing in Hawaii. Like what's been hopeful for me, bye Sarissa, what's been hopeful for me is seeing those community like grassroots movements that are happening, and actually where people are physically taking back structures, physically occupying land, and then having that handed over to them and gifted to them. And because the way that land was originally acquired was stolen, illegal, right? And so it is possible, and it is happening. And I think that so seeing more of those stories and sharing those stories to help us get ideas on how communities are actively doing this is what brings me hope. And I would love to invite all of us to bring those stories into this space as well.
Right. And those stories too are kind of our research for our quests. So when we start to launch quests, and we've already done quests actually, but they weren't overt quests, but as we start to do our cosmic quests, the cosmic quests are going to be our ways to bring in the elements and bring in all of our abilities and powers to actually channel it to do different projects, whether it's a land project that we support or we champion, or it's something that we haven't figured it out yet. It's a quest that hasn't even materialized, because we need to hit the drawing board together, and create some quests together. And also, by the way, we've already had sponsorships with companies and organizations that are like-hearted, and we're going to continue to build those bridges with companies, so that when we are doing these great things, let's also create a system of abundance, a system of reciprocity, that when we show up in loving and heart-filled ways, that our cups also get filled, that we're not extracting, doing good, that is fulfilling. So it's our time is winding down. We got 5 more minutes. Any other shadow writers you want to bring up, or any other feelings you want to bring up with this? And obviously the link is going to stay with you guys. You guys are welcome to keep adding to it offline or whatever you guys want. And this is going to be just a reference point for us as we continue to build this game together.
I just wanted to give thanks to everyone that, showed up this evening. I really, one of the ways we can beat the shadow writers is by taking the time to show up in communities like this, regardless of size. But it's actually having the conversation puts that energy out there so that it can, be picked up on by other people, or people can tap into their intuition like Elle and be like, yo, I just felt it, but it's how can people feel it if we're not talking about it? So just really huge shout out to everyone who showed up, whether it was for the whole time, a little bit of time. Your presence and energy really helps to feed this container so that more people can jump on the bandwagon, or take a peek in and see what it's about. So I'm just really grateful.
Anyone else? Don't be shy, please.
No, this is great. I feel so pleased that I showed up here and met you guys. So I want to stay in touch and connect. I think I have some links to go to in some Instagram accounts, etc. But I love what's happening here, and this is what I want to be a part of. So
yay. Here, Elle, you got to fill this out. You too, Jacqueline. So you guys, I'm going to share this with you guys in the thing. Here's a form. Make sure you guys fill out this form and tune in with this form, and it'll give us more of a perspective on what elements you're rocking. Cool.
Yeah. Make sure you put your email, so we'll add you to our newsletter, and we'll keep these conversations going.
Beautiful.
And where are you at, Elle? Where are you coming from?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So,
nice. That's where Mick and Tizzle are.
Oh, cool. Excellent. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and this is going to be kind of our flow. We're going to keep doing it. Anybody else? 2 minutes. Dun, 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 dun. What shadow writer is time? Like the stress of time.
Ooh. conquest. It's all about time management, right? And flow
Oh,
of time.
damn. Stress. Time stress. Wonder if there's any images.
And the
for that.
delusion of time.
Delusion of time. Some of these images are hilarious, bro.
They're gonna be really fun powers when we create these shadow riders.
Definitely. Definitely. I got a message from somebody recently who did the time laughter. The one that I do, the laughing when you're like late. So it was such a great message. It's always, I love getting those anecdotes of people using the laughters in their real world, you know?
Yeah, those
So
are superpowers, right?
it's like literally they're like using like their Pokemon card, or they're like taking out their magic card, you know? Like, yeah,
Like
I'm using
spells, right?
the spell, yeah. Yeah,
Thank you
anybody,
guys thank you for hosting this. Appreciate all of you for showing up consistently and creating a space for anyone to come through.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for driving by.
Oh, and last things, but not, I updated the website, guys. You guys gotta hear, I'll share it with you guys. And check out the updates I made. Look at, if you scroll down, look, we are a cosmic movement. And then I added the United Nations SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and a little blurb that aligns with each one of those SDGs, you know? So we got quality education, good health and well-being, zero hunger. You guys remember that? Zero hunger, cutting the onions.
That's
cutting,
awesome.
Yes. Oh my
Redu-
God.
reduce inequalities right here. Look at that. There's Charlie over there, right? We got climate action, right? We got peace, justice, and strong institutions. We got partnerships for the goals. So yeah, and check out the language if you guys have any edits or additions to the language that, you know, you're from your perspectives. But this gives people like an idea that, hey, like we are operating outside of the system, but we actually know how to speak the language of the system too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're lab hacking it.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. May
Thank
the
you so
force be
much.
with you.
Yes.
Before we peace out, Tizzle, Mick, any updates? You guys want to share anything?
I'm gonna be at patchwork shows every weekend through the second weekend in July. So I'm really grateful that we were able to do this today. But yeah, patchwork is a maker's market, and I'll be selling my brand perfume oils, intentional perfume oils that are also Reiki infused for my brand Aroma Cora, and also doing oracle card readings. And when we are at Bhakti, I'll be there doing the same thing. So I'm excited, you know, that we're all going to be there. So I'm like, yeah. Thank you, thank you. Oh, and I just did it today. I just confirmed I'm going to be at Soul and Sound. I'm facilitating Soul and Sound paint. So it's going to be a sound bath. And then I'm also going to be leading people into like an intuitive meditative painting. So I'm really excited about that, and I'll post about it. So yeah, so people can show up if they want to. It's going to be on May 30th. And if it goes well, it'll be a series. So I'll be doing it multiple times, and I'm excited.
That sounds dope, Tizzle.
Thank you, Sam.
Wow, so exciting. And wait, when is the painting thing you said on the 30th?
Yeah, 30th in LA. 100%.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna post about it. You'll see it.
Yeah, please.
Okay, awesome.
Yay. That's my announcement. Thank y'all for listening.
What about you, Mick?
Well, I already kind of talked about it, but yeah, and then the Bhakti's coming up, so I'd love to heartstorm with everybody about that. Already want to do composting and worms and helping them make some trenches to bury a lot of organic material from a pond that they have on site. So it was just like full of cattails. They have a well and they have a pond and people go fishing there, and they need to clean it out. It's full of duck poop. Speaking of poop,
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's great fertilizer for these like basically in-ground composting that we're proposing as part of our play shops, you know. So it's going to be a bigger effort, probably like going out in July and August. So if any of you guys want to go to the site of Bhakti Fest and like volunteer some time out there, I'm planning to go out probably in August is the main times, and really help kind of guide like building on contour trenches that'll capture water whenever it does rain, but also when they water the site, it'll just help it infiltrate there, and they'll be adding all this other organic material to make it extremely fertile, and they'll be able to plant some like drought tolerant plants there and create a little oasis. Already is an oasis, but augment the oasis at this festival site. So yeah.
Two things. Drew said he wants to connect with you and help out. So he's in LA. You can definitely resource him when you're going out there, and he's got good muscle. And he wants to learn how to do this stuff too. So,
Nice.
and that's one. And number two, how was the owner? You met the owner. How was she? Not Bella, the owner of the
Yeah.
Joshua. Was she excited? Was she happy?
Oh, super cool. Yeah, she has her own garden, and we're gonna teach also in one of the play shops that I proposed to them. We're gonna be doing the worm bins, like teaching people how to make their own worm bins. Very simple, like in-home composting system. And then I don't recommend people take worms back home in the like hot desert heat.
They can eat them. They can eat them.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll just give them the bins, give them the owner of the bins so that she can have some awesome worm bins for her garden.
Yeah.
And she'll also have this other like cool in-ground compost site, for when there are big festivals and people can just kind of like open up a hole and put all their organic waste in there, and then like bury it with some wood chips, and it's good to go. Let the ground do its work. All the organisms in there, you know. So
boom. Oh
yeah.
man, that's so awesome. It's so legendary. Just totally hacking the festivals. I can't believe
Yeah.
I still can't believe nobody's done this at festivals before. This is kind of crazy that like we're the first ones doing this. Crazy.
Yeah, but she's down. They're already starting with some of the other festivals. Based on our proposal, they're like, oh, maybe we could do this with every festival that comes through. So the Joshua Tree Music Festival, they already did something just this last week, and they're gonna do another one in October after we do ours with the next Joshua Tree Music Festival that happens at the same site.
Nice.
So yeah, planted the seed and it's going.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Use the people power. Power of people power, right? Power of hope. Awesome. Charlie, you got anything?
No, I'm gonna be studying and bored, so it's gonna be very like busy time. But I definitely am gonna be at Bhakti Fest. I'm super excited. So yeah, Mick, I'd love to kind of help Heartstorm, kind of like what we're doing over there.
Yeah,
You got
beautiful.
this, Charlie.
Yes.
Charlie, I'm so bored from you just sharing about your board.
Yes, I am bored too. Trust me.
Keep making posts and memes, making fun of it, so it just gets lighter and lighter.
Yes, definitely. That's how I get over it. Fight the shadow rider with laughter.
Elle, do you have anything to share that we should know about and so that we can support?
No, I'm fairly new to LA and just looking to build community here. And I've been in like a bit of a dismantling / rebuilding over the last 10 years. So I'm ready to like get involved with people. And so, yeah, I'm here to support everything. Like want to connect with Mick. I have all these links to check out and Instagrams, and I will follow up and happy to be here.
Yeah.
So happy you are here too. Yay.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, what's our like power out deal? All right. Earth, fire, water, wind, air.
Prospect, yeah. Prospect power.
Till we come back together again.